Hello and welcome to the Opening the Gates Q3 2024 UK property market update. I'm recording this a little bit later than usual in the month as I've just returned from incredible holiday in Canada. I've got lots to cover off in this episode, so I'm just going to jump straight into it and start sharing my screen. So to start with, as always, going to go through the Q3 update. So from left to right, we've got Q3 24, which is July through to September, versus Q2, which is April through to the end of June. And then we've got 24 versus 23 for Q3. And then we've got the Q3 6-year average. So on the market, properties for sale up 3% on last quarter, 11% up on the year before, and 19% up on the 6-year average. So more property for sale equals more competition for sellers. They need to be more realistic on their pricing. And this also means more choice for buyers, which is great news because it's bringing more people to market. That is also going to stabilize property prices because there's an increase of supply. However, whilst stock levels are at a 10-year high, they are still actually only a couple of percent up on like 2019, and they're still crazily low if you compared it to like a dozen 15 years ago. I've looked back at when we had the 07, 08, 09, 10, so that kind of boom to bust market, and we've still got a crazy low level supply of property for sale compared to then. So uh, high equity in property, low levels of stock, no forced sellers is why we haven't seen significant house price drops since the mini budget dating back to September 2022. So yeah, more property for sale. Sellers need to be really realistic on their pricing because value conscious buyers, if they don't see good value for money, they're going to walk away and they can go buy somewhere else. Whereas 2, 3, 4 years ago, they did not have that option. They had to pay through the roof to get the property that they wanted. New listings up 3% on last quarter, 9% up on last year, and 3% up on 6-year average. So again, confidence has definitely returned to the market. It really feels like people are going, do you know what? Political, economic uncertainty, unfortunate issues all around the world. But if we need to move, we might as well just get on with it. Again, 2 years ago, lots of people predicted significant house price drops, which haven't happened. So people are just thinking, do you know what? Forget what everyone's saying. No one's got a crystal ball. If we need to get on with it, we can afford to do it. Let's get on with it. So sales agreed was slightly down on Q2 by 4%. Unsurprising because Q2 is a huge quarter for the year where so many sales get done. We're then into the summer months and we have had election, Olympics, Euros, Paralympics, all sorts of things going on. However, saying that, almost 24% increase in sales agreed versus Q3 last year, which is unbelievable. It's a fantastic rebound. But again, it's slightly skewed because Q3 23 was a really difficult market. It was downbeat. Interest rates were at their peak. So don't read into that too much, particularly any sellers who are reading this information and going, oh my God, let's go and price it crazy. We're very much in a two-tier, two-speed market. Price correctly, sell quickly, pricing correctly, end up being on for ages, end up having to reduce it, get worse than you did in the first place. That's if you even sell. But good news is sales agreed are only 1% below the 6-year average. Now, if you think in 2019, I can't remember what interest rates were at that point, probably 0.75% off the top of my head. We then had 20, 21, 22, record low interest rates, COVID market, race for space, whatever you call it, stamp duty holidays, all that going on. You then think in 23 and 24 of where the base rate was compared to 19 through to 22, only being 1% below is pretty damn good going. It just shows how resilient the UK property market is. So I've been very positive there. In terms of positivity, I'm going to start positively on price changes. I just need to find my notes because I've got so many notes down here. So price changes. The positive way of looking at this is that up 6.5% on Q2, up 4% last year, and up 28% on the 6-year average. Now, you could argue that is the market reacting and going, let's press on with things, let's realign our pricing. It's great work from agents, sellers are realistic, and they're just cracking on with it. I think that's a little part of it, but there is a continuing issue of overvaluing the marketplace from agents and from sellers. Sellers are going to be unrealistic. They always are. I think the stats from RightMove are 95% of sellers think their house is average or above average. That can't be possible. You've also got the endowment effect. If there's anyone watching this and I haven't discussed the endowment effect with them, please do reach out to me and I will discuss that with you. It's very good for buyer-seller psychology on pricing. And then you've got agents who are competing with one another. There's fewer transactions than 15 years ago. There's a lot more estate agents. So agents are prone to overvaluing and undercutting on fees. Again, if you want any conversations around price reductions and actually I was trying to avoid it, but if you're going to do it, actually do it impactfully. If that's even a word, please do reach out to me. But on the price reductions, they're up on the 6-year average. Price reduced properties are less likely to sell. If they do sell, they take longer. They're more likely to fall through. They're more likely to have to change estate agents, and they also achieve a lower price in the long run. So nothing good in theory can come from price reductions. I must caveat that. I have seen one or two agents who price reduce a lot of properties, and they are the biggest agent for sale agreed in their area. That's just a strategy. I think it's throw enough XYZ at the wall and something will stick. And that's very much a volume game, which some can play and others can't. So on the price reductions, I put a post up the other day. So again, just looking at my notes, in September, there was over 100,000 price reductions. First time going back to January 19, looking at data that we've surpassed 100,000 price reductions, which is mad. It was 10% higher than the previous record set in July, and it's 70% higher than the monthly average going back to January 19. So it's absolutely crazy how many price reductions are happening in the market. And there's definitely some conversations, some education to be had there with sellers around the negative impact price reductions can have. Anyway, onto withdrawn. Withdrawn down slightly on Q2, slightly down on last year, but up on a 6-year average. So again, in terms of number of sales agreed, compared to 2021, 22, there is fewer properties being sold. So that would mean that there's more withdrawn properties where people perhaps with unrealistic expectations have withdrawn from the market. But it is down on last year, which is good to see, not unsurprising. Q3 last year, people are probably going, oh my God, like with these interest rates, buyers are not buying. We're just going to take it off and come back again, which I will talk in more detail when we go through the Zopa house price index in a few minutes. Fall throughs are on the up. For anyone who has read my LinkedIn newsletter, you would have noticed that I talked about the longer a property takes to sell and price reduced properties have a higher chance of falling through. So I really think that is why fall throughs have increased. I mean, one, there's more sales being agreed. But yeah, property is taking longer to sell than it was a year ago, and there's more price reductions happening. So that is why fall throughs are happening. Again, if you want to understand the psychology behind that, please do reach out to me and I'll go through it with you in some more detail. In terms of properties re-entering the market, continuing to rise, 14% up on last quarter, 28.5% up on Q3 last year, and a whopping 36% up on the 6-year average. So again, fewer properties going sale agreed, tougher market conditions, people are coming off the market, they're re-entering. Again, if you want to know more information on that, please do feel free to reach out to me. But it's definitely a recurring theme of more people changing estate agents, and you'll see that in the Zopa house price index as well. So moving on to average asking price of listings. So in Q3 23, it was 422.5. In Q2 24, it was 448. And unsurprisingly, it dropped a little bit in Q3. You do see that summer sort of drop in asking price there, but it is still up on 23 last year. I think I have it as about 2.31% up on 2023, but it is 3.5% down on Q2. So pretty static, slight increase on average asking prices. We must remember that approximately only 53% of properties actually go through to being sold, and the propensity to sell is at the lower end of the market. So take it with a pinch of salt when sellers are saying, well, RightMove house price index said asking prices have gone up. We've got to look at what's actually sold, because again, that's what buyers are going to be comparing it to and surveyors when it comes to mortgage valuations. Pounds per square foot, 362 Q3 last year, currently sits at 385 and was 376 in Q2. So quite interestingly, pounds per square foot is up 6.3% on last year and 2.39% up on Q2. If you want to know more about pounds per square foot, again, reach out to me. I feel like I'm saying reach out to me a lot, but there's so much I could cover off in this, but I don't want to make it longer than it needs to be. So if anyone wants to speak to me privately, they can do. On sales agreed, it was 352 last year, 362.5 where we stand right now, and 372.5 in Q2. So in terms of sale agreed, it's up just under 3% on Q3 2023, slightly down 2.63 on Q2, but sales agreed moving in the right direction, which is great news. And then pounds per square foot currently sits at 342. That's up on the 329 of last year. And that's actually just under 4% rise on the pounds per square foot. So in reality, just for ease of maths, 1,000 square foot property last year was on average worth 329,000. Today it's worth 342,000. If you're not using pounds per square foot, it's a really, really good measure to value property. There's a variety of different ways to use it as well. It's not the be all and end all because there's obviously other things that impact the price of a property, condition, views, plot size, supply, demand. But starting with pounds per square foot is a really, really good rule of thumb, and I'd definitely recommend it. On to net mortgage approvals. Where are we with net mortgage approvals? So net mortgage approvals continue to rise, which is fantastic news. There are about 65,000 in August. Last year, 45,500, so a massive increase there. And then 62,500 in July. So as interest rates steadily come down, mortgage approvals have increased, and that's a really good sign of activity in the market. We can get too obsessed about talking pricing, particularly the public, but actually a good metric is looking at activity in the market. Now, in terms of mortgage approvals, it's just 2% below the pre-pandemic average. And that's with interest rates, well, a base rate of 5.255% that we've seen in the period of these mortgage approvals. So it's fantastic news there. And then last but not least on this page, again, a good marker of market activity, number of transactions. So August 24, 90,210 compared to 85,620 in August 23 and pretty similar to 91,000 in July. So transactions are definitely moving in the right direction. Of course, this is going to be lagged. So August completions probably got agreed in March, April, probably came on the market at the start of the year. So again, going back, that's when we were still getting inflation under control. Base rate was nowhere to be seen in terms of coming down, and interest rates were higher. So these transaction numbers are looking really, really positive for what's to come. So on transaction levels, we are still 9% below the pre-pandemic level, and it's 7% lower than 2019. So just something to consider there. We're certainly not having humongous transaction levels, but they're definitely moving in the right direction. So a few other bits I want to go through. I'm not sharing my screen. I have another one over here. So I'm just going to run through a couple of bits. So just come out today at time recording from Lloyds Bank. And it's been all over the news, obviously. But the UK economy returned to growth in August following 2 months of stagnation, and it recorded a 0.2% rise in GDP. So whilst it's not blowing the socks off of anyone, good news there. I'm going to talk budget in a second as well, but Labour have obviously said there's a massive black hole and to expect a horrendous budget at the end of this month. But there are some good signs in the market. Nothing to get carried away with, but it's certainly not all doom and gloom. Speaking of budgets, got my notes here. So, last 10 budgets, if we look at mortgage approvals in the 2 months prior to the budget and 2 months after, on average, there's about 10.6% but new buyers entering the market following a budget. So you will get some people going, "Ooh, what's going to happen?" Particularly when Labour have been very negative about what's to come. But on average, last 10 budgets, 10.6% rise in buyers entering the market. Now, I must caveat that there's always going to be pros and cons to budgets depending on when they are. So, for example, the summer COVID budget. Obviously, there was absolute chaos in the market. There was a 259% increase in mortgage approvals in the 2 months post that budget via 2 months prior. Now, the infamous Liz Truss budget of the autumn of 22, mortgage approvals went down 22% in the 2 months post that budget compared to the 2 months before. However, in the last three budgets, we've seen an average 12.6% increase in mortgage approvals the 2 months post-election versus the 2 months prior. And actually, in March 23, which was the first budget after Liz Truss, we had a 19.6% increase in mortgage approvals. So whilst it might be bleak towards the end of this year as people react to the budget, this has shown, like with the data I've shared before on general elections, that uncertainty leading up to a political economic event might cause a bit of stagnation in the market, but we normally come out the other side. That's for sure. If I've just reeled off all those numbers, so if anyone does want more information on that, please do reach out to me. What I will also say is that based on all the data out there, it does appear like we might have at least one more base rate cut this year. The Monetary Policy Committee will be meeting again in November and in December. So there's two more meetings this year, and there is definitely more data to come out in terms of inflation before those meetings. So let's see. But the common consensus is that we should see another interest rate drop, hopefully down to 4.75%. Other things just cover off in terms of what to see in the market. First-time buyers, their stamp duty relief and the change of that, I think ends around April. Listing a property today, on average, gone to RightMove, you'll be completing in April. So what I'd be saying to any sellers who have got properties that maybe attract first-time buyers, they want to be putting their property on the market sooner rather than later. Otherwise, the first-time buyers might come out of the market, or they might be trying to negotiate down your asking price because they won't have the saving on the stamp duty anymore that they would do today. So just something to consider. 1 in 3 house purchases are from a first-time buyer. So definitely something to consider. And even if their property doesn't appeal to a first-time buyer, probably going to be in a chain where a first-time buyer is involved somewhere. So just something to consider. And just relating to the budget and things as well, VAT on school fees coming in January. So again, there might be people who are looking to purchase a property in a catchment area of outstanding school rating. As they maybe take their kids out of private school, no longer can afford those fees. So something to consider there as well. And maybe you want to go target those properties with a direct mail campaign, saying, did you know that properties in an outstanding school area will achieve a higher price? With the VAT being added to school fees, this might be a great opportunity to cash in. Again, if anyone wants to discuss strategy on that, please do reach out to me. And then I think the other thing I just wanted to talk about in terms of mortgages, whilst mortgage rates have come down, if there's anyone out there saying, oh, wait till they come down to where they were 3 years ago and be below 2%, just again, you'll see in the Zopa house price index in a few minutes. It just doesn't appear like that's going to happen. That was kind of an anomaly that I would have spoken about before rather than the norm. So if I look at swap rates right now, whilst they are lower than a year ago, not really any different to where they were a month ago. And swap rates are a really, really good indicator as to where mortgage rates are going to go. And the daily look at it as well, it has actually gone up in the past 24 hours. So this nervousness around the budget has caused lenders to kind of halt on what they're doing with mortgage rates. So just something to consider there. And then a weekly tracker from RightMove. It's interesting that in the last week, mortgage rates have stagnated or gone up in a 95% loan to value on 2 and 5 year fixed rates, whereas the 90, 85, 75, 60% loan to value, they still have crept down a little bit. So there's that nervousness around people who've got higher loan to values, although 95% loan to value is actually such a small part of the market. The average loan to value is more like 75%. So yeah, just thought I'd share a few bits on that. And I'm just going to read something around mortgages out from my other screen. So average first-time buyer mortgage payment is still over £350 more expensive versus 5 years ago. It's now £931 a month compared to £578 in 2019. That's a difference of £353 a month. However, it is £150 a month cheaper than the peak in 2023. And these calculations are based on 20% deposit and spreading the cost of mortgage over 30 years. So average 5 year mortgage at the moment with a 20% deposit is about 4.58% compared to 2.13% in 2019. And that has meant that mortgage payments are 61% higher than 5 years ago. Also, a first-time buyer in Great Britain, if they're buying a property of 2 beds or fewer, it's now on average about 227.5 compared to 192 in 2019, so about an 18% increase. First-time buyers are waiting longer to buy a home and spreading the cost of their mortgage out for longer. The average age of a first-time buyer is now 33 compared to 32 in 2019. And the average mortgage term of first-time buyers is now 31 years compared to 29 years in 2019. So yeah, just a point on there. Um, First-time buyers are waiting a little bit longer, and to ease the cost of a mortgage, they are increasing the term. So just something to consider there as well when you're perhaps negotiating with buyers. And they're struggling to get up that extra 5 or 10 grand, maybe seeing if they would be willing to increase their mortgage term. Um, right, onto the Rightmove house price index. Got so many notes here because I'm covering a whole quarter. So 16th of September, Rightmove house price index came out. Monthly average asking price increased 0.8%, double the long-term average for September, and a whopping 27% increase in sales agreed. So a strong rebound from last year. But this year's double long-term average was some with prices supported by increased activity levels. The traditional busier autumn does see market appears to have started early. Many movers spotting opportunity as mortgage rates have trended downwards. So number of sales is up. Homeowners are more confident to come to market that we saw, and they're 14% up on this time last year. The average number of sales property, as I said earlier, is at a 10-year high. However, it is taking on average 60 days to find a buyer. That's 3 days longer than in the more subdued market of last year because those value conscious buyers are taking their time to find something and they've got more choice. Mortgage rates are down on the peak of July 23, but they are almost double where they were 3 years ago. And of course, people are waiting to see on the announcements of the autumn statement at the end of October. So some fantastic data from Rightmove there, but I'd strongly recommend you should be sharing with your marketplace. And if I scroll down here, the other things I wanted to share was wages are growing faster than inflation and house prices. Um, we're in a two-speed market. Those who price correctly are selling very quickly and getting a good price. Those who price incorrectly sit on top of the market, probably have to reduce it, probably don't sell. And then if they end up selling, it took them a lot longer as well. And there are still uncertainties ahead with the budget. However, I do believe a lot of people have already reacted. We will see it in the Zopa house price index, but around 15% of properties currently for sale have previously been rented out. So these landlords who are nervous around what the budget is going to mean, in my opinion, actually so many of them are already reacting, and we're not seeing a massive influx in supply to property on the market. So strongly recommend reading the Rightmove house price index in more detail. If you haven't already, there is some fantastic information in there. And if I scroll down to here, average stock per agent, you can see has increased on where it was last year. And then time to sell, as you can see, is higher by a few days than it was last year. So that is the Rightmove house price index. Going to move on to the Zopa house price index. So in house price inflation up 0.75%, sales up a whopping 25%. And interestingly, 1 in 3 properties for sale marked as chain free. Motivated people looking to sell. Particularly a lot of those are going to be the buy flex. So very positively, mortgage rates at their lowest for 15 years have boosted activity. Demand and sales agreed are up, which is great news. Buyers do remain price sensitive, which is keeping those prices in check. Almost a third of properties for sale are chain free as investors and second homeowners, should I say, are selling in face of recent and possible tax changes. And the outlook is for modest price growth and steady growth in sales. So whilst we've got a boost in activity, interest rates are lower, stretches on affordability, more stock available is just going to limit that price growth and the number of transactions. So buyer demand up 26%, sale agreed up 25%, new flow of property up 16%, and stock of homes for sale up 12%. So lots more activity in the market. Won't go through this. This is what I wanted to look at. So landlords properties previously rented 13%. Almost 1 in 5 properties have cut their asking price by at least 5%. And interestingly, 1 in 5 properties currently for sale have been on the market in the last 2 years. And a whopping 22% of properties currently for sale have been on at least 6 months. So again, stretch on affordability, more stock available, price reductions happening, people are on the market for longer. But interestingly, it's like 40% of properties actually sell in the first month. It's because they price correctly. And then 1 in 3 are chain-free listings, so very motivated sellers. Just on the chain-free listing, you could go and search Rightmove or Zoopla for chain-free listings. And if you're trying to target properties for sale, probably go and target those. They're very motivated. Maybe you can get them to switch estate agents. Again, it's a great strategy. If you want to discuss it, feel free to reach out to me. Low single digit house price inflation ahead, as we said earlier. And this interesting graph here from Zoopla, proportion of sales agreed at 5% plus below the initial asking price. Obviously, it was higher when we were in the struggling market of a year ago. You can see it's very low here during the COVID market as things were buoyant, and it's returning to the more normal pre-pandemic levels there. So I think that was it for Zoopla. I think I've covered that. I think there was another bit actually. Here we go. This is what I wanted to discuss. The outlook for interest rates is far from certain, though, considering global events, today's fixed mortgage rates already reflect the extent to which financial markets expect the rates to move in the next 2 to 5 years. So Zoopla's view is that mortgage rates will settle in the high threes to low fours in 2025. So there will be a modest improvement in borrowing costs and affordability. But together, rising household incomes, it will help improve affordability for home buyers and support sales volumes. So yeah, a lot more positive than we were a year ago. But sellers just need to be realistic and manage their expectations if they are serious about moving. Um, right, running up to the last few bits now. Nationwide. So nationwide house price index. I think the key thing here, and them and Halifax say similar. They're just below the 2022 peak. We've got the fastest rate of house price growth since November 2022. And then what's quite interesting is if you look at the percentage growth in house prices, it's terrace followed by semis that are performing best, and then flats and detached are behind there. And then look at that map. Loads of blue on that. Obviously, didn't look like that in the election at the start of July. Sorry, Conservative Party. But it's really good to see so much blue on that map in terms of growth in the market. And as you can see here, we're not a million miles away, according to nationwide data, of where we were at the peak in September 2022. And then here we can see that house prices have started to move on the increase. And then house price earning ratio is improving as well, and slowly but steadily, it's getting a little bit closer to the long run average. But again, it's still far off that. So that is the nationwide data. I don't think I'm going to run through these bits here, but it's a really good quarterly update that I'd strongly recommend you take a look at. So Halifax saw an increase by 0.3% in September, year-on-year rise of 4.7%. And as I said, as with nationwide, the biggest increase since November 2022. Now, some really good points here from Amanda Bryden, the head of mortgages. So house prices have climbed, which is great news. But she says here it's essential to view these recent gains in context. I think that's such a vital point there. So whilst the typical property value has risen by, according to them, £13,000 over last year, this increase is largely a recovery of a ground lost over the previous 12 months. Looking back over the 2 years, it's an increase of 0.4% or £1,200. So go back to September 22, peak of the market. 2023 was subdued, difficult. 2024 has been a recovery. So that context is crucial. So she goes on to say market conditions have steadily improved over summer and into early autumn. Mortgage affordability has been easing thanks to stronger wage growth, falling interest rates. And this has boosted confidence amongst buyers, with a number of mortgages agreed up 40% in the last year and now at the highest level since July 22. So very, very positive news there. So if you get stopped in the street and someone says, what's the market like? Well, that depends. Are you buying or are you selling? There is some great information here to share with people on that. So whilst there is improved mortgage affordability, it should continue to support buyer activity, boosted by further interest rate cuts. But housing costs remain a challenge as we looked at nationwide on the last tab. The house price earning ratio is still considerably quite a gap there. So some great reports there from Halifax. If I just scroll down, you can see that where they're saying average price at 293 compared to 280 a year ago. Onto Eserve. This is quite doom and gloom. It's quite negative in the first bit of it. So I won't dwell on this too much, but they're just talking about how negative it's been. If I just go down to the bottom, you've got the budget on the horizon. Whilst there's little expectation of help for buyers, there's a clear expectation from the government announcement of tax rises that could potentially impact them. That's going to impact the Bank of Mum and Dad, which potentially is going to impact first-time buyers who are massively supported by the Bank of Mum and Dad. But I should say on this that whilst they say that there is small reductions in the market, there is a gradually improving year-on-year picture that has been seen. And where am I? If I scroll down, so as I said here, relatively small. They've undermined the gradually improving year-on-year picture slightly. But they go on to be a bit more positive here. So despite earlier optimism on our part, price have yet to move on to a reassuringly positive trajectory. Whilst the index indicates that price continues to be subdued, generally speaking, the market conditions are improving. So that's a positive I kind of saw of it. So cost of living pressures have progressively eased for many households. Falling mortgage rates have helped affordability and sentiment. Mortgage approvals were at their strongest level in 2 years. Competitive mortgage deals as lenders compete against one another have certainly helped. But prices are going to remain in check as it is just very price sensitive. And there are more sellers offering their properties for sale. So I think those were the key points there. I've already spoken about the upcoming budget, so I won't mention that again. The key thing I think I wanted to highlight was in the Eserve house price index, point two. Their index is based on the actual prices at which residential properties in England and Wales are transacted, including prices for properties bought with cash. It's based upon land registry reporting. It represents a vast majority of all transactions, and they're based on that rather than just mortgage based or asking price, which is Halifax, Nationwide, RightMove, Zopa. So they're going to be a bit more cautious, I would say, there on that. Whereas a lot more of the other data I've been going through are showing what is ahead rather than looking back at the market that Eserve have done. So you'll be pleased to know I'm on to the final few bits now. My mouth is getting very dry. So £290,000 is the average property price in the UK, July 2024, 2.2% increase annually, 0.6% increase monthly. So in July 24, the average price was just under 290. In July 19, it was 232 and a half. July 20, so 5 years ago, we've had a whopping amount of price increase there. Last year it was 283 and a half, so we've had a good increase there. And in September 22, it was 288 and a half. So house prices are actually just under £1,500 more expensive than they were 2 years ago at the peak of the market. And that's land registry data that's going to be outdated. So we're definitely on our way towards 300,000 being the highest ever price on record, according to land registry. So some positive there for price growth. No matter what happens politically and economically, because there's such a lack of property being built, a lack of property available, and the UK's love of buying property always seems to return very positively. And then if I show you this here, so again on the UK house price index, if I show you the data table, there we are on the data I just gave, 289,723 compared to 283,532 a year ago. So last house price index we're going to look at, which is from home.co.uk. I don't really think there was too much to say on this. I think pretty normal on the other bits they said. Stock levels are higher compared to last month, a year ago, 2019. There's more unsold properties. There's about 500,000 of them on the market at the moment. And this bit here, despite a notable slowdown and 10-year high in unsold stock, the sales market momentum remains relatively healthy. So again, price sensitive. Those who price correctly, they're selling. Those who don't are not. The days of unicorn prices have very much gone. And as they say here, overall, there is a two-speed market. Sellers are clearly motivated, given the seasonal price dip as we head towards Christmas. The drop in the bank rate will have been certainly given the green light to a lot of sellers to commit to the market, hence more properties entering. And then there's also landlords exiting the market as well. This has given a downward pressure on prices, but it certainly hasn't made a massive difference because it's not a ridiculous oversupply to the market. If I scroll down through here, where do I want to go? So this is the unsold stock level. So as you can see, it's at a kind of 10-year high. You can see that this is a more normal market here. Interest rates were lower then, which supported much better house price growth and sale transaction numbers. And obviously down here in 2021, first part of 22, ridiculously crazy low numbers, which meant sales numbers were high and interest rates were low, which was supporting house price growth and transaction numbers. And if I just scroll down to the end, their map showing a 0.2% drop monthly, unsurprising at that time of year, but 1.5% up annually. So I have talked 100 miles an hour, trying to get through so much information there. But I hope that was all useful. The Q3 market update. I will be back at the start of November, where I will be reporting on the October market, looking at how that compared to September, and then also October over recent years. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how October goes, considering we've got the mini budget, the autumn budget coming up. If you have liked what you've watched, please do like, comment, share, review. Make sure you subscribe. I know it's a very small number, but I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers on YouTube. I don't do any SEO ads, paid for stuff. It's very much just putting this content out, hoping that the 100 or so people that watch it see benefit from it. And if there's anything I've discussed that you want to talk in more detail, please do give me a shout. And if there's anything else you want me to cover off that I haven't, I would love to hear from you. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in early November. Take care.